I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Ovation from Looking Glass Workshop. Ovation is a 1 to 4 player tableau building game in which players are working towards putting on the best performances and impressing the maestros. The general idea of the game is on your turn you're going to take an action. You're going to take an action from one of these 4 possible actions on your player board. The first action is just gathering inspiration. This gathers these tokens, moving them up over here on your little piano board tray, this cute little tray over here, but moving your tokens up on that board to show the various inspirations you have and the quantities of them. Those in turn are going to be utilized towards buying all these various cards in the display. Your second action is fortune. When you take the fortune action, you can go ahead and take any one of these fortune cards, paying any combination of inspiration in the bottom left corner, and then tucking that inspiration card wherever it seems to match. So for example, this one shows this symbol, so this would be tucked under our perform spot where it would enhance that action when we take it. The same is true for these and these, just going to the various spots on your player boards to enhance those actions. I'll explain more how that works in a second. The third action is patronage. Same general idea, you're seeking patronage. You're going to again pay inspiration based on the bottom left of these cards and then take one of these patrons. These 3 over here would be tucked underneath the fortune spot, again that same general concept, and it would enhance that action. And then these over here, these are going to give you and lose you points based off of various performances you have done in the game based on which side they favor or don't favor. So different kinds of patrons, we're spicing it up a little bit more than the basic fortunes. From there, the fourth action is going to be the one that ultimately is going to determine how you get most of your points in this game, which is going to be perform. You won't be able to do that right away, but when you perform, you're going to go ahead and pay the cost again in inspiration to get one of these performances, either a basic starting chamber music or alternatively working your way up towards concert music. Concert music is worth more points. All the cards, by the way, are worth the points in the corner, but concert music, in addition to requiring more, generally also requires that you have performed something with that piece. So for example, to perform the piano concerto, we'd need to go ahead and have performed something with the piano icon. For example, the piano quartet over here would be able to fulfill that, and we'd still need to pay in an additional 6, and then we can go ahead and complete that concerto. That's the basic idea of the actions you're taking. But there is a bit of a twist, because as you stagger up those actions with cards, you can do more with a limit. So for example, let's say on my first turn, I went ahead and I went to patronage over here, and let's pretend I have a bunch of resources, just to make this a whole lot faster, skipping some of those inspiration. By the way, when you take inspiration, you can do 1 resource twice or 2 resources once. But over here, pretend I have these resources, I go ahead and take the seek patronage action, and I'll take Lady Sophie over here, paying 4, I'll pay 2 of blue, 1 of yellow, and 1 of red, and I'm going to tuck this underneath the seek fortune action. This means that when I next, let's go ahead and have other people take their turn, we'll refill the display over here, and when it comes back to me on my turn, the next time I take a seek fortune action, I can go ahead and do whatever is here. So first, I can go ahead and take the general seek fortune action, and for in this case, in this example, what I'll actually do is I'll go ahead and buy this over here. I'll pay 2 blue over here, and then I'll go ahead and tuck this underneath this spot over here, which is going to allow me to get a better, stronger action when I go there. But then, because this action over here shows that when I'm done doing a seek fortune action, I can take an inspiration action, I can immediately on my turn move my pawn over here and gather inspiration. Now there is a cost to doing so. I need to pay one of my musical notes on this card in order to do that. Don't worry, you will get it back, you're not losing it forever, but it's a turn by turn resource. So I pay that music note, I put it on the card, and then I move my person over here, and in my same single action, I get to go ahead and seek inspiration, and I'll raise up blue by 2. The problem is, this action over here says that if I raise blue doing this action, then I can get 1 more blue, but I can't actually do that right now because I'm out of musical notes. You need more musical notes to be able to trigger more actions in one time. This game does have a cascading effect where you can jump from action to action, you can get more things, there's a whole bunch of extra stuff happening, but you need musical notes to be able to take advantage of all of that. Speaking of which, how do you get musical notes? Well, you get a musical note when you perform. On the perform action, it shows you over here that you're getting a musical note every time you perform, which means that's going to be another reason why you're trying to perform. In addition to the points, it's going to help build up your engine. So working your way quickly towards your first performance will build build up and improve your engine a whole lot faster. There is an additional element which I won't heavily get into, in which you can go ahead, when you perform, other players can drop by and benefit from that performance. If I went ahead and performed this clarinet duet over here, other players can get that one blue inspiration, but if they do so, they need to hand me a ticket to have attended the performance. This ticket comes from the general supply, not their own, but it's going to give me either a point, you get 2 tickets worth of point, or 2 of the same ticket can give me a matching inspiration. So sure, they get an inspiration, but if enough players choose to attend my performance, I'll get inspiration as well, or just points at the end of the game. The last thing to note, there might be a few other things, but the main last thing, well, there's a few other things to note. First of all, players have their own asymmetric ability. So Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart over here, his special ability is he could spend 1 less yellow inspiration in order to perform. But then the main thing that I wanted to note over there are going to be these. These are the maestros who you are trying to impress. There's always going to be 2 maestros plus the number of players, and game end will trigger when there are 2 maestros or less left in the supply, which means on your turn, when you go ahead and do all the stuff, if you've achieved one of these, so for example, this one is Mass Appeal. If you've performed 2 masses, this would be a mass over here, then you can go ahead and take this and get the 4 points. These are these maestros. Once you claim them, you're going to be getting extra points, but then also leading your way towards triggering endgame. That is the basic idea of the game. There's a small little module as well, there's a solo mode, but the general idea is it's a tableau building game in which you're trying to build up your tableau with cards, but you also in tandem with that need to build up your performances to get more musical notes so that you can actually take advantage of the tableau that you have been working your way towards building. And with that, we're going to go ahead and start with our review of what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like. In general, a fun theme to begin with. I like the little musical, more classical music era and all that. The art I enjoy. It gives a nice little cartoonish look that makes it very easy and accessible to dive into. So overall, starting off well with theme and art. It's also an engine builder. I like engine builders. I like games that let you do more as the game goes on, and this game certainly lets you do more as the game goes on. And the later in the game, your turns will be very rewarding as you have a whole bunch of musical notes and you're working your way towards taking these long cascading turns that have a lot of benefits to them and let you do a lot of different things. So later in the game, the turns can be incredibly satisfying. Outside of that, you're just working your way towards 4 different things that you can try to do. These are kind of the same idea, just a stronger version of them, but you have this entire display of cards that you're trying to figure out which pathway you're taking towards what's going to play off well with each other. If I know that I get a discount on performances because of my special ability, maybe I want to focus on getting other resources to even that out, and then focusing on cards that will cost those resources in order to most take advantage of my tableau, of my abilities, and just working your way there. And again, as well as these patrons over here that will also give you points towards things. If I can get Lady Harriet and Lady Ahmed together, then I can work my way towards trying to get as many of these operas as possible, because both of them are giving me an extra 2 points. That could be an extra 4 points for a very low cost, assuming I can go out there and get my hands on the opera. I'm also combining all of that as well with obviously the maestros. Over here, down here, we have opera buff, perform 2 operas and get another 4 points over there. So again, there's a lot of cascading benefit. If I perform 2 operas, I'll get the points of the operas. I would get 4 points per opera because of both of these, and I get an additional 4 points because of the opera buff. So there's a lot of things all coming together to try to give you the goals you're working towards while building up the engine in order to do them. As far as things I don't like in the game, it kind of gets in the way of some of the things I do like. The first part is that the early game tends to feel weirdly constricted for me, at least coming from being used to other engine builders. In this game, you're going to be gathering cards, and your early game, you have the economy to buy a lot of these, but you have to spend more time and effort in order to go ahead and perform a performance. But you need to work your way there as fast as possible, because getting even 2 musical notes is a big jump in how fast your engine moves, because you kind of have that instinct of gathering these lower cards down here to be able to do more things, but you need to pay in those musical notes in order to activate them, which can slow you down very heavily. Having a bunch of cards that you can't activate early game feels weirdly constrictive, and it will take time before you get to a point where your engine of the potential that you can do is actually matching the actual that you can do because of those musical notes. And so I do find the game has an arc that, as much as I like the late game of the arc, the early game feels incredibly slow moving. Every action is very slow, you're not doing a lot. And the tricky part here is when I compare it to other engine builders that are very, do one thing, do one thing, do one thing. Very often they're a lot quicker in how they do one thing. This one I think has a degree of thinkiness that kind of slows down how fast that one thing moves, because you're trying to take into account a lot of things, but then ultimately it still is moving slow in that early game, and it takes that mid to late game before things finally pick up the pace. So I think the pacing of the game to me ultimately does feel off and slows down the experience for me. And then on the other side of that, later turns can be incredibly satisfying, but especially if you're playing at higher player counts, it can be incredibly slow when it's your turn. Later turns can have a large chaining effect of getting multiple actions done because of the amount of musical notes you have and the amount that your engine's trying to do, and as you try to min-max your own turns. That can make it for incredibly satisfying turns when it's your turn, but it can slow down the game a lot late game when other players are taking their turns and you're waiting for that one quick thing you're going to do, and someone else is taking a 5 musical note turn and taking their time thinking about which actions to take. As far as what I can see others not liking, it's a little more subtle than your typical engine builder in this weight class. This is not a super heavy game. It lets you do a lot of things. It lets you combine and work your way towards that. But I do find it's very much more subtle in terms of the way you have to approach it. It's not about just acquiring all the cards you can. It very much is about acquiring fewer cards and working your way in tandem as you build things up, in a way that could provide a slightly more rewarding experience, but it also could be off-putting if you are used to more traditional engine builders that don't have this 2 tiers of matching as you try to build up your engine. As far as final thoughts on Ovation, it's a very unique engine builder, and it's one that I can see people liking, well, more than some engine builders because of that tiered system, because of the way there's almost an elegance to the performance, as it were, pun not intended. I do find that there's something here that I can see others appreciating more. For me, it falls into a weird spot where I liked a lot of what the game was doing, and I liked the late game, at least on my turns, but I definitely felt that the early game, as much as I'd play it a few times to get into it, I felt the early game frequently felt more constricting than I would like, and multiple plays didn't solve that issue. I thought my first play would be like just an issue of learning. My first play, to be very clear, my first play I dove into a whole bunch of these early game cards, and then very quickly realized that's not the way this works, and was left with an entire tableau that I wasn't taking advantage of until much later in the game. I figured that might be something that subsequent plays might fix, but it didn't really for me. Don't get me wrong, I got better at the pacing of it, but that sense of slowness still prevailed over multiple plays, and so for me it's a weird one where I like a lot of what the game is doing, but the tempo of it, pun intended that time, the tempo of it doesn't work out as well for me as I would like. I'm going to be coming in at a 3 out of 5. As far as other game recommendations, the simplest, most easy comparison to give over here is going to be Splendor. Definitely check out Splendor if you like tableau building, if you like gathering cards, building up your resources, trading them in for cards. It's a much simpler, more direct engine builder. I think there's a lot more nuance and interesting decisions here, but Splendor will be a lot more fast-paced and accessible. And if you're looking for something that has a lot more of the kind of ability manipulation that this one has, check out Gizmos from CMON as one that I don't see talked about as much as it used to when it first came out, but it still holds up and gives you a good ability chaining experience that is similar to this in some of the ways that it approaches it. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you appreciate this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.